Bearing witness. In a quiet village nestled on the border of two once peaceful nations, a family by the name of the Parkers had lived for generations. The village itself was idyllic, with rolling hills, meandering streams, and an air of tranquility that could lull even the most restless soul into serenity. But the winds of change had begun to stir. For years, the neighboring nations had been embroiled in a bitter conflict, their disputes escalating until war was all but inevitable. The Parker family, along with their fellow villagers, found themselves precariously perched between the warring nations, their humble homes now sitting at the doorstep of the battlefield. The morning the war began, a palpable tension hung in the air. The sky, once a serene blue, now seemed heavy with the weight of impending doom. The Parkers, like the other villagers, had little choice but to hunker down in their homes and pray for the conflict to pass them by. But war, they soon learned, is indiscriminate in its reach. The sounds of battle echoed through the village, and the ground quaked as the two armies clashed. Terrified, the Parkers huddled together, seeking refuge in their basement. Days turned into weeks, and the family's world shrank to the confines of their dimly lit underground sanctuary. Food grew scarce, and tensions ran high, but the Parkers clung to hope and to each other. As the battle raged on, the village around them bore the brunt of the conflict. Homes were reduced to rubble, and the landscape was forever scarred. The park that once held the laughter of children now held only the remnants of war, an eerie silence that seemed to stretch on for eternity. One fateful evening, as the family huddled together, they heard a cry for help. It was a wounded soldier from one of the warring nations, his uniform drenched in blood. Emily, the youngest Parker, insisted that they couldn't leave him to die, regardless of the conflict. With great trepidation, they brought the injured soldier into their shelter, tending to his wounds as best they could with the limited supplies they had left. The soldier's name was Anton, and his tale was a tragic one. He spoke of how the war had torn apart his homeland, of the loved ones he had lost, and of his desire for peace. In their dimly lit refuge, the Parkers and Anton began to see each other not as enemies but as individuals touched by the same tragedy. They spoke of their hopes for the war to end and their dreams of a brighter future. In the weeks that followed, the village saw a ceasefire, and the battered nations came to the negotiating table. The war finally ended, but it had left an indelible mark on the landscape and the hearts of the people. The Parkers, along with Anton, emerged from their underground haven and found their village forever changed. The scars of war were etched into the land, but the hope for peace burned bright in their hearts. The family that had once lived quietly on the border now held a profound understanding of the costs of conflict and the strength of compassion. As they looked out at the village they had called home, they knew that healing the wounds of war would take time, but it was a journey they were willing to undertake. The Parkers and Anton, once strangers from opposing sides, now stood together as witnesses to the devastation of war, united in their desire to rebuild and bring lasting peace to their land. The end. Please subscribe my YouTube channel Teddy's Best Story Time. See you next time.